Hi, and welcome to Data Demystified, the podcast where we look at data, MarTech, getting value from data, and how that actually works in practice. My name is Stefan van Kalkeren. I'm the CPO at Hotjar, and today I'm joined again by Stefan Goossens from Converzo, web development agency, marketing agency, all that good stuff. Hi, welcome again.
Thank you.
In our previous episodes, we've talked about how accurate data can be for building audiences. We've talked about data versus intuition.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things also have to do with how do we use data. So today I'd like to talk about what is the expectation of data literacy, data-driven marketing when customers come to you. Maybe some us to us, but in your case, I think there's a broader range of different maturity levels when it comes to data.
I think so, yes.
So what do they expect from you? Or maybe what do they expect overall from marketing in terms of data-driven?
Well, some think it's a magical machine where you just put in quarters and get customers. And others...
Is in data is something that will tell us what the Holy Grail is? Or there's a machine like a platform we can just put money in? And
And then that the platform will just magically create clients or leads or... but there's a big difference in... I think it depends on how much experience they have in online advertising and working with data.
Where those that have more experience expect less, or do they expect more?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it depends on earlier adventures. Some
adventures. All right, yeah.
Let's call it an online marketing quest.
Okay, yeah.
I think some have tried stuff and know what works, so they have higher expectations of how good platform data is and their own data.
Yeah. And
others have less fortunate adventures and are somewhere in the valley of despair, trying to climb up again. Yeah. So. The expectations vary a bit, but
I think that makes sense. I mean, back when I started to do data science, like the running thing was data science is about 20% data science and 80% data cleaning. That quickly went to the joke of data science is about 20% data science and 80% complaining about data cleaning. Because it requires work, right? There's no one-size-fits-all magic machine where you put in the quarter and then whatever data there is or is not will tell you something magical or will just bring in the leads automatically. And I think there's value in the data, probably more than most companies expect and probably already have more.
Yeah.
It's a matter of accessing it, I think. Do they look for you when they're less mature to give the answers, or do they expect you to? If you take Google Analytics, there's a dashboard. It's got a couple of standard reports.
Mm-hmm.
You can make your own custom reports. Do they think? And this sounds like I've never talked to other people before, but I'm a bit biased because of my data background. Do they think that you see more in those dashboards than they do, or do they expect there's more to it that they cannot see?
I think it's both, because they expect there's more to see. And they expect me to magically see the extra stuff. But there's also a lot of clients that just don't know how to read it or don't know what they are actually looking at. So you try to clean it up a bit by making custom reports and getting out of all the noise.
Yeah, so there's still a matter of having to make sure the access is better, that there maybe are cross-sections of the data and reports, ways of visualizing it that's more interpretable to them.
Yeah,
that's something you can do and they probably cannot.
Yeah, I think it's mostly a matter of filtering out stuff, noise, to point... to get the data they are actually looking for. Yeah,
because you work with business owners as well as more the marketing departments in bigger companies. On the one hand, I'd expect marketing professionals that are quote unquote just marketing professionals, and they can focus on marketing, whereas a business owner can maybe has marketing and sales and support and maybe delivery. I'd expect them to maybe have an easier time of going from, all right, this is an interesting find. Let's now do this. Let's do this intervention. Let's tweak this. Or do they leave the thinking to you. So to what extent, once you give them those insights, do they expect you to come up with like an idea, or is it something they can pick that up and run with it? What's your experience there?
I think companies that have a bit of a marketing department tend to take the insights and come up with new angles, because they usually also work with an external creative agency, so it's a bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
The really small business owners tend to dive into the data maybe even too much, as in looking at outliers and then figuring it out if that was Jack clicking and spending 12 minutes on one page and then thinking, oh, but that page sucks because Jack took 12 minutes to find. Like literally watching like a tool like Hotjar, watching recordings of one user and seeing that user getting stuck on one specific part of the page and then wanting to redo the entire page because one...
to be honest, I think I've done that. So on Mark, we cater to a lot of big companies, enterprises, but I also have my own company, as you know, because you've helped me out with that, Dewey. So book platform, not that many signups, which means that yes, sometimes on slower days, I can actually know, all right, this is the one customer that bought something today, which means I can look at their Hotjar recording if the opt-in was there.
Yeah.
Or maybe when there was a failed transaction, they didn't sign up. At the end, there was some entry in my payment system, but then that got cancelled. All right, what happened here? And it's very tempting to then go and try and derive all the information, all that this is the
from
truth.
The one.
Yeah. Because also, I think as humans, maybe also food for another episode, but we're not really interested in the numbers. We're interested in like the narrative, right? What's going on there? The story of the data, not so much the data itself. And it's easier to get to a story from the one observation because you know it's Jack, and Jack knew you from a different post way back when, has visited the blog and has now called you up saying, hey, this is Jack, I'm having issues with my payment.
Yeah.
Then looking at a dashboard that says there's 2,312 visitors today, and 10% of those went away. Now what, right? That is tricky to get to something that's tangible from that.
That's true. But I feel if you look at the single at the outliers or the single, it's not generic for all the. You're sending a lot of people to your website, and then one person is struggling with.
The outliers for a reason.
I usually tell a client, you don't know, maybe his dog is barking next to his PC and needs to go out, so he dropped and he came back later through another channel or the next day or on his wife's phone together on the couch. So you can't base your plans on that one screen recording. Yeah. And even if I look how if I sit next to my wife and I see her on her phone in a navigating through a web shop. Most of the time, it's a web shop. I feel like I could have clicked through that like 4 times faster.
Yeah. Seems familiar. Yeah.
So if you can have 2 screen recordings of 2 different, just making a successful purchase, but take 2 completely separate decisions on how you should redo your page. Yeah. So especially when reviewing your page, you need data. You need a lot of data. You need to exclude the outliers.
Yeah, because I think a tool like Hotjar is very nice, especially the recordings to qualify once you've got someone that's already a quantifiable issue. So if you've seen this page has a big drop-off point, then it's nice to look at some recordings to find people that actually correspond with that bigger finding and then see what's going on there in detail. Yeah. The other way around, probably maybe as a start for a hypothesis. So I could see that if you're looking at the recording of Jack, you're like, all right, are there more people like Jack? And then go from there and see if actually Jack is an edge case or Jack is just one of the few that are currently not being helped, or one of a bigger pond. I think that makes sense. But is that what you mentioned is also a type of intuition? I think that yes, there's statistics that do this for you. So having like statistical power and all that it's very nice because that gives you the answers or at least the clarity to some extent. But even before that, or if you're not as versed in that, having the analytical intuition to realize that averages are not just fun, but they are to make sure that we don't do this, that we don't take Jack as the representative for the entire human race.
Yeah.
That I think that having that intuition, that is key, and especially when you don't have too much data or there's not a lot of time, or you can always improve upon the accuracy of your analysis. But getting to a decision, like feeling this is enough to go on, I think that's the tricky part, right?
Yeah, that is tough because sometimes even when there are campaigns that don't run on a lot of budget, so you don't have a lot of, or it's a very high-priced item where you don't have a lot of conversions. It's difficult to base the next steps on those tiny numbers.
Yeah.
Because if the next day 2 people buy something, you might expect, oh, what we did was perfect, but what's 2?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Because I've been on the opposite end where customers would say to me, these numbers seem too low to me, so we're not going to do anything on it. Where I was like, yeah, but if already these people are having issues with it, maybe we should do something now in this stage, then expose 1,000 more people to it. But that's because they expected to more volumes of data. Therefore, 40 is not enough. We need about 300. Yes, but 40 is still enough to say
something is wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
I imagine at the other end, have you had questions of people saying, this is not enough, I don't trust this? Do your customers come to you saying, "Wait, Stefan, you're telling me I need to update this, but there's only 12 people here, so..." Have you had that, or are they asking for more observations?
Most of the time, I won't make that claim when I won't make a claim to try something else if I don't have the data to support it. It happens.
Do they challenge you on it, even if you are very? Because maybe 12 is not a good example, but if you are, that's
very low.
Yeah, but do they challenge you on it? So in terms of like, what is their expectation of being data driven? Do they challenge you on, hey, but is this like a good enough statistical representation enough, or not, or is that something to just take as a given when you? Yeah,
they usually follow our judgment on it,
which is, I mean, is good, right? Because they pay you for that.
But so it wouldn't be a really nice client if they challenge you on every decision you make. And it's always I'm not opening my laptop on a Monday morning, clicking through their campaign, changing stuff without no big changes, without them being aware of, okay, I want to try this because I've seen these statistics.
Yeah.
So it's always a back and forth. So not much challenging in that case, in that sense.
All right. And then you find that customers that maybe came in with the expectation of having a magic machine, how do they adjust to the reality of what data-driven can be, or how do you help them adjust to that? Or
that usually happens in the first getting to know each other and talking about what we can do, because you pretty much you have a sense of them thinking it's all a magic machine pretty early on. So sometimes it's a bit hard to convince them that it's not a magic machine, and you still have to test and iterate on earlier things.
Where in the entire mix does data fit? What's the ideal position you'd say? What's your approach to data? Maybe that's a better question. What's the need for it? What's the role it should have? What shouldn't it have in that entire thing?
Well, in running a campaign, it's the one thing that makes an online campaign different from something you do offline.
Yeah.
So a banner in a bus stop, I don't have view numbers, I don't have click-through numbers, I don't have... And then, of course, view numbers don't say a lot online, but it's more than I have offline.
Mm.
And click-throughs, it's also not... it's still more than I... So it's data makes the campaign. It gives you like something to lean on.
Yeah.
That because if you wouldn't have that, it would only be okay. We have an ad that we think is nice, and we have a page where we convert, but everything in between would be guessing.
Yeah. Have you? I'm not sure how much this applies to your customers, or maybe the way you help your customers, because you're part of an ecosystem typically. But when it comes to running ads on different platforms at the same time, how do they handle that? Because then you're not everyone is that obvious, or that maybe risk taking in saying, all right, so when we've got ads on Google Ads, we got them on Meta, maybe on LinkedIn, or maybe there's some YouTube, there's some TikTok, whatever. That mix, it might be assisting each other. They might just have their own standalone effects. There might be different other things going on. Do they ask those questions that lean towards marketing mix attribution models, or is it something that we just put money in those machines and they, if it works, it works? how do you have those conversations? Is that something that you do?
I tend to spread my chances. So a mix of YouTube, Meta, and Google Display sometimes some Snapchat even,
right.
if the audience is in that category. But because and then still that's also the funny thing with data. If you put out the same ad offline in different places, you don't really have a sense of what place is working.
Yeah.
While online, I can see, okay, on Meta, this ad, and even if you have an ad set of like 5 different creatives, one could work better on Meta than it did, and another one could work better on YouTube.
Yeah.
So the data gives you, and there's not directly something you can do with that, but it's nice to know. I think.
Yeah.
It's something you have. You have data. Yeah, I'm stuck.
No, but that's the thing. I guess it gives you something to work on, something to maybe optimize, or at least say these 4 are not working too well.
And then maybe just skip these ones on Meta and put the budget on the one that was performing, and then or divert that budget to the Google ad that was, or the YouTube ad that was working, the different creative. So it gives you dials to turn and switches to switch.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the most you can do as well. I sometimes work with clients that they have the budget and the amount of time and data history to build very complex models. So then you can actually compare when we ran a TV ad combined with a bus stop ad, combined with Google ads last year versus this year, and or maybe they have different timings. Therefore, we can try and see what the effect was incrementally of just the TV ad versus the Google ads. That's all nice and well if you got the data. If you don't, then the only thing to do there is doing full-on experiments. So meaning 1 week you would run, or maybe probably even longer, you would run Meta, Google, Snapchat. And the next week we'd leave one out.
Yeah.
And then do that throughout the course of 4 weeks and see what happens. But you're never to the point, and this is going to be very depressing, but you're never to a point where it's really scientifically valid enough. Because there's always, if I do this in this like I described it, there's 4 weeks where at the end I've done all the different combinations, but at the end there might still have been an effect because the fourth week of the month might have been salary week because there's other people buying stuff than in week 1. It might have been better weather than it was at the beginning. Yeah. But there's never really, to be able to control for all of that. Yeah. There's so much you have to do.
Even because you also said like the you run a campaign a year later based on the data of the first year, but then the creative agency says, yeah, but we don't like running the same ads again. We want to change the creative. Okay, so now my data's, it's not useless, but it's different.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, different propositions, different competitors in the field, all those things come into play. Where I think, basically you hit the nail on the head. Yes, there's ways to optimize while we're running, and there's ways to look back and maybe see what was working. But confusing the two is not always as easy because there's never that clear of an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I've also find when one of the things we're currently building is a HiGem, the tool that takes up Google data, Google Analytics data, and then finds patterns from customer journeys starting to end. People try to read a blog post. Do they buy? Do they not buy? What's going on there? And one of the big things there is always it's one set of data that we look for. And then the question is, all right, so we know that this particular blog worked better.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And why didn't it work better a year ago? There's always follow-up questions. Even if you have got these insights that are very clear and quantifiable, saying people that read this blog have twice the chance of actually buying the product. But I mean, for the person writing the blog, very good news. Then the question is, how do we get more people to the blog?
Yeah.
If they now come in organically and we start to run ads to get people to that blog, does it still have the same effect? Because the people that search for the blog are a different type of audience than the people that once you've seen the blog. Is that because there's something else going on in the market that made the blog relevant, whereas in a month it might not be? So I think then it comes down to the intuition of saying, all right, this is what we can do now to monetize that or create value from it.
Mm-hmm.
And also being comfortable enough to leave all the whys and what ifs alone enough for a moment, I think, because there's never that clear of an explanation, is there?
No. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're not in for the science. I like to be robust in your approach. You want to be. You don't want to over exaggerate or make claims and statements that you cannot really you cannot cash, right?
Yeah,
you want to make sure that they are founded, and at the same time, there's only so much you can do to get to the full picture, right?
You're almost like a horse with the. You're looking at one piece of the puzzle,
mm-hmm.
and you can optimize from left to right, but outside of your viewing, there's still stuff going on.
Yeah. What would you say if you're a small business, especially in the current age? There's plenty of tools that collect data. There's ways to integrate the data. So if you're techie enough, there's ways to build up some kind of customer image, especially if you're in B2C.
Mm-hmm.
What would you advise people starting out? How should they build up data or information about the customer? Where do they start? What's like ground level of good business?
I noticed there's still, and I'm not sure why, but there's still websites that there's nothing to do. There's like, this is what we do, this is what we sell, pick up the phone and call us.
Oh, it's like a business card, basically, but then online.
Basically,
yeah.
So...
Like website 2001. Yeah.
So at least make sure there's something to measure.
Yeah.
Besides like timing and pages and make sure there's...
So you're talking soft conversions, hard conversions, all right. Yeah.
And then build a simple dashboard, I think. Just that you have a bit of sense of what's going on.
How do you get to what's the most important to you? Because the obvious things are, we'll look for conversions, we'll add time on page because everyone's adding time on page. We're looking for new visitors versus returning visitors. How do you find the core for you basically there?
I think those soft conversions are pretty much what you want to measure.
Yeah.
Well, even more the hard conversions, of course, but it gives you a sense of if you're going in the right direction. Even if you're not having the hard conversions, at least the soft ones show you you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
More so than just they read my blog. So I think if you just have those numbers and keep looking at if those go up with your changes in your campaign, I guess you're at least on the right track to optimize.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, like I said, if you open any type of dashboard, there'll always be stuff about this. This is the amount of returning visitors you had. This is the average time on page. This is the average engagement rate. All those things that they seem very important because they seem to tell a story about how effective you are, how loyal people may be. All those things, which might be very valid once you get to a point where you know people are converting and they're buying and all that. But
exactly. When you're getting the convert, then you can get into the. But those metrics are also the rabbit hole metrics that you spend way too much time tweaking on stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
of course, in the end it does, but you should get the basics.
Yeah. And then every one-dimensional are there because time on page could be a low time on page is very nice if you're looking for any type of step one of the funnel. The lower the better. Homepage or a blog, the higher the better.
Yeah.
Returning visitors, same thing. I'd like people to return by, but if they're coming back to my complaint page, I'd rather not have them returning. Unique visitors alone is a weird concept because because we're looking at cookie level, device level. Profile level.
I'm so happy that Google decided to skip the bounce rate because I can't count the times that I had to explain bounce rate to clients that, okay, you're landing on a page, but that's also the page where the conversion is happening. And maybe a bounce isn't always that bad.
It's what you want. Yeah.
Those are the rabbit hole metrics. You can get lost in them, but is there really the answer to your better campaign, or I don't know.
Yeah, I guess only if you think there's an issue because people are not reading the blog. And yes, we can see this because the average time on page is very low, therefore people might not be reading the blog. All right, okay, then it makes sense. Bounce rate, same thing for a blog, maybe for a landing page. Yes, if it's a one-off, indeed, then yeah, bounce rates nice. They're not looking for more information once we have the confirmation in. That's good. That's what you want. Yeah. Yeah, so that's maybe the tricky bit is that once you get past the initial layer of counting the KPIs, then you get to the nitty gritty of what does this metric mean in this context and what should we do with it.
Yeah.
So to summarize, your advice to people starting out is just first get the groundwork in, then build a simple dashboard reporting on the soft conversions and optimize step by step. And later on, look at the rabbit hole metrics.
I think so. Yeah, maybe just look at the rabbit hole metrics once you're happy. Like, okay, I'm happy. This is my happy space. Let's see if we can get into the even happier space. Because at least then you know that you can still mess up your campaign tweaking based on the rabbit hole statistics.
I guess so, but at least then we know what to get back to.
Yeah.
What to refer to.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Very insightful as always. Would you like to know more about these topics? So data, MarTech, when do we use data and what's the headache you get from data? Be sure to check out more episodes. For now, thank you very much and see you next time.